a series that we've started called Spirituality in the Arts. And we are going to be engaging with different people on different topics through the Easter season. And this idea kind of started before the COVID crisis hit, when we were thinking about books and stuff. But as we've entered into this quarantining and social distancing, we thought, what are ways that we can come to know God differently through creativity and through the arts? So Ruth Gless is the first one up, and we are thrilled to be with you in your kitchen, Ruth.
In my kitchen, yes.
So just a little bit of background on Ruth, which you can share this more if you want, but Ruth is an architect who paints, and that is the theme of the topic today. But she received her degree in architecture from University of Virginia and worked in that medium for decades. Ruth currently has art exhibitions. She has had art exhibitions at the Hilton Hotel, at the Rife Gallery, Ohio State Faculty Club, the Georgian Museum in Lancaster, and the Columbus Convention Center. And she is currently represented by Sharon Weiss Gallery in Columbus, Ohio, and Sharon is actually on the phone.
And I am proud to be represented there as well. Sharon's terrific. Okay, so I'm going to talk about something I don't think about very often, which is creativity, because I find that it's useless to sit and wait for an aha moment for the creativity to come upon one, but one needs to work at it. I think at its core, it's really about problem solving. And this, I think, is very clear to me, having been an architect. We ask, what are the knowns? What are the unknowns? What's the goal? And how do we get there? And the process of how we get there is what is the creativity. And it's not in the arts only that one asks these questions. Obviously, as a professional and an architect, we ask these questions all the time. I think people think it's very technical, which it is. It's about technical issues and it's about technique, but it's also about aesthetic issues, about making something beautiful, about making a transcendent space. And this is what great architects do. The goal is to make something beautiful. So I bring this way of working, of problem solving, to drawing and painting. And it's some of what we do is about process and about skill. So I'll show you this photograph of one of the Nereids. There are 3 of them in the British Museum, which the spring that I was there to paint and draw, I went to see the Parthenon marbles yet again, and to draw them. And they were all upstairs in a special exhibition, which hadn't opened yet. So here were these wonderful Nereids, which are amazing. If you look at them, the wind is blowing her clothing. And
we can't see it yet. You'll have to share.
Whoa. Yes. Okay, share. Oops. Sorry. Thank you. Shared. It's kind of cumbersome. Okay, can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay, so the wind is blowing her clothing, and that in itself is an amazing artistic expression and technique in stone to make it look this fluid. So I decided I would draw her, and oh no. Okay, now. So I'm sorry this takes so long. Okay. So, and I wish you could see them side by side, but I can't. Somehow I'm not good enough to make that happen on the screen. And it took me about 3 hours to draw her. So, and you can see on the right-hand side, there are a few little marks, which I made in order as a technique for getting what I was seeing onto the paper. And And there's really nothing very much creative about this in terms of problem solving and making something completely new. This is about technique and what I call sort of performance, about practicing seeing. And ultimately, I think that what I do as an artist is to see, to especially if I'm doing something representational, to look at it and to really see it. So before I start to draw, I wait and look and take it in and get it into my brain so that then what I see is, it's easier for me to then to draw it. Okay, so now, oh no, Stacy, I have to move you. Okay, so I'm going to show you another thing. Can you see that? The bluebird? Okay. Can you see it now? No.
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay. Share the bluebird. Okay, so, and this is a small painting. It's 8 inches by 8 inches. And this is another example of technique, this time in paint. This is a little China bluebird that belonged to my grandmother, which I'm going to give away to my sister sometime soon, but I couldn't quite part with it until I had really seen it. And until I draw or paint something, I don't really see it. It's, as one of my great teachers, Fred, always says, um, it's about value and shapes. It's not about the thing. It's about value and shapes when one is trying to paint a thing. Okay, now I'm going to show you. Can you see this one? Photograph?
Not quite yet, but let's give it a second. It's still the bluebird up there. Oh, there's the photograph. We have it.
Okay, this is a photograph that Georgia O'Keeffe took, probably of her hacienda in New Mexico. And this is really about seeing. This nothing haphazard about this photograph at all. She brought mind and composition to taking this picture, from the view from the courtyard through the room, through the window to the scene beyond, making a juxtaposition of a faraway view and a close-up view to the if you look at the wall with the doorway in it, it makes a square. That's not haphazard, I'm absolutely sure. And and to the walkway and the shadow which cuts through that doorway and just barely clips the edge of that bush. And in fact, I would have said that she trimmed the bush, but she didn't, because she's just got a clip of it. I would have waited a couple more minutes to let the shadow not catch the bush, but then that's just me. Okay, next. Okay. Okay, can you see this one, the next one?
Yes, we can.
The big chair. Okay, now this chair is, this is more than just representation of the chair to me, because I purposed the chair, the chair is by Le Corbusier and a couple of his buddies, designed in the late 20s, I think 1928. And it's the modernist interpretation of the classic club chair at the time. And the composition of the chair is, it's not haphazard, it's very careful. And this is why I'm devoted to it. It's a cube. And if you look at the elevation of it and you lay your triangle across it, you will find squares and golden rectangles organizing every piece of the composition of the chair. So when I painted it in a square itself in the center. And there you can see in the blue and the orange, you can see the vertical line of and in the separation between the floor and the wall behind the horizontal line, I've taken the square format and made a quadrant out of it and placed the chair dead center in that, so that my painting honors the original composition of the chair. Okay. Next. Wait. Okay. And this is a painting I did in a friend's house in Washington, and this is her chair, her corbeau chair. And on the wall behind her are a couple of Piranesi engravings, or copies of Piranesi engravings. I think they're 19th century German. I bought them up across the street from the zoo a long time ago in Washington, and I have 2 of them, and she has 2 of them. And I do a lot of interiors, and for me, when I do representational work, a big part of it is the composition of the painting. I don't, I know painters who sit down and say nah, nah, and they frame a view and they paint it. And for some painters, it's about the process of painting. For me, it's about partly about the process of the composition of the whole thing. And I particularly, the reason I'm showing you this is because it brings together 2 very disparate in time and type of art, both based on the golden rectangle and the square, that is the Roman arch. And if you take your triangle and lay it across any ancient building or classical building or Renaissance building or Baroque building and many 19th century buildings, you will find that the composition of the elevation is very ordered by the use of certain kinds of geometries. And so it's kind of nice that in her library, Stacy has the modern representation of that together with Piranesi's representation of the Roman version of that. Okay, next. Now I'm going to go, let's see. Okay, I'll very quickly show you. Oops. This painting, which is 36 inches by 36 inches, and I like chairs. I paint a lot of chairs because for me, chairs represent the intersection of design and human use. And there are, as you can already see, an infinite variety of chairs. And yet they are limited by the necessity of people having to sit in them and them having to be structurally sound to hold people up. And so I borrowed this chair from Tassi, which is next door to me, and put it in my studio and painted it in like it was whirling around in 4 views to show you the design of it. And I had a few little collages that were sitting against a wall at the same time. And so this is, again, a square painting that I say it was 36 by 36, and it's arranged in a quadrant, and it was on display in the Butler last year in their annual show in Youngstown. Okay. Now this is, I'm going to very quickly show you just because, wait, oh, that's not the right one. Phooey. All right, let me show you something else. Stacey, what do I do? I can't make the new ones come up. Do I have to get rid of some of these? Oh, there it is. Okay.
Is it showing on your screen?
Okay, now I have to get rid of that. Okay, can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Oh, oops. I hate technology. So, okay, so this is a painting I had to do fairly recently for Sharon has a, and you should check it out. There's she was going to have a show of all the artists she represents were painting views of their studios, and this is my studio. And and it's a square painting because I always put my paintings on, if I can, on a format of either the square or the golden rectangle, which, because um, it's a known uh, form, and it's not arbitrary like 8 by 10 or 8.5 by 11 or something like pieces of paper. So I use a square or a golden rectangle to make my paintings. And Sharon, anyway, Sharon has an exhibit of all of these artists' paintings of their studios, and it's pretty interesting because you can see a whole lot of different techniques and points of view. And you, since we can't go to the gallery, the exhibit is on her website as a video of a collection of of all of these paintings, and it's pretty fun, and I recommend that you go check it out. Now let's see. Okay, now I'm almost done. So this is a new uh, endeavor on my part. Actually, it's resurrecting something I did a long time ago when I was an architecture student, which is collage. And I collect all sorts of images, and I collect letters, big letters out of various publications. And a lot, of course, since a lot of architecture magazines come across my through my mailbox, a lot of what I get is related to that. And I decided, I have some more abstract ones, which I can show you, but I decided to do something different, which is to recall a whole series of paintings of the Annunciation, which I particularly like the ones Fra Lippo Lippi and various other ones that were done in the Renaissance in Florence. And I did a lot of sketches of them when I was a student and I was visiting Florence. And I like them because a lot of them are square. And so, and they engage both the foreground, the middle ground, and the background. And if you think about, if you've ever seen any of them, we have usually a domestic scene with the angel visiting the Virgin, who is demure, and a view into the garden with Adam and Eve being expelled, and usually the Holy Spirit up in usually the left-hand side, beaming down onto the Virgin. And there's always architecture that controls the setting. And sometimes the Virgin is inside, usually in her bedroom, with the bed very carefully and beautifully made, and the angel sometimes outside with the garden behind him. And sometimes there's a gateway way in the back with poor Joseph coming in or out of the gate into the garden. So I've done my own modernist view of this painting and this scene. Oh, and there's a lily. And I couldn't find any lilies, so I use a rose because I know the rose is often a symbol of the Virgin. So I call it the reticent Virgin receives the angel Gabriel. And she's looking longingly out to the city. And you see the garden on the left and Adam and Eve being expelled from the garden, and the Holy Spirit weighing in as a postage stamp, which is the best I could do. Anyway, and there is architecture separating inside from outside. So that's the only religiously themed work I've ever done. And I'm going to show you. Come on, Oh, here we go, new share. This one, which is more modern, which is abstract, and it's called Bits and Pieces, as you can see, because I just gathered a bunch of stuff together, and really this is about color, balance, and composition. Okay, so I will show you a couple of paintings from Merida, and then you can ask me questions. What? I can't hear. What did you say?
It was just background noise.
Oh, okay. When we were in Merida, when we visited Merida, I did a series of watercolors, and this is a view of St. Luke's, for those of you who haven't been there and haven't seen it. And this is at Dale's house. This is a view of the stairs leading upstairs to her bedroom and one of her dining room chairs. And one more. You see this one, the new one? Wait. Damn it. Come on. I was on a jury the other day for architecture at OSU, and now I understand why it took so long for the drawings to get up for us to look at, because the student had to do a share each time. Oh, I give up. Anyway, I can't get the share button up. Ah, here we go. Okay, do you see that one? That one is a view of the loggia at Richie and Harrington's house where I was staying. Okay, so there's just less than 10 minutes to go, so I would like to open it up for other discussion and questions, because I talked enough. I can't hear you, Stacy.
Thank you, Ruth, and you navigated the technology beautifully. I'll start with a question, and then if others either want to unmute themselves to ask questions or type them in the chat, and I can read them, either way will work. But it's amazing to see your art and your different interpretations and your use of even your training in architecture in painting. But I wondered if you could share a little bit about creativity. You said you never think about creativity, it's just.
No, and I did a poll, a very small poll of people who do what I do, and you can't think about creativity because you're doing it. It's not. If you thought about it, you'd get all balled up and not be able. I would anyway. I would get all balled up and not be able, to proceed. I mean, you've heard about writer's block. I think I'll go back. A lot of people say, "Oh, I could never do that," when they see a drawing or a painting. I could never do that, and I disagree. I think anybody can do that. Some people are going to do it better than others, but it's about seeing. It's about you don't. There's no blind painters, right? It's about seeing. It's about seeing what it is you want to represent physically seeing. It's about seeing then what's on the canvas, and then it's about seeing in your mind. And I suppose that's where the creativity is how you take what it is you see and translate that into what it is you're going to see or seeing on your canvas. And I know that at a certain point, especially in designing a building, at a certain point, the thing itself takes over. One has an initial idea, and it was true about the Annunciation, or it's true of any collage I do, and also of the painting. Once I make an initial decision about the composition and the frame, then the thing has a life of its own, and I become almost a servant of that. Does that answer the question? I mean, so you can call it it's a mind, for me, it's a mind thing. Can I focus my mind to see the thing that I paint, or the thing that I am painting?
And I think you said some of that too. You said until you draw or paint it, you can't see it.
Well, I had a professor when I was in architecture school, and I was trying to explain what it is I was going to do. And he said, Ruth, if you're not drawing, you're not thinking.
And you've always remembered that.
Well, it was really, I mean, it was like, whoa, right, and whoa, I get it. And it's the truth. If you can't, and this is why it's interesting to me, I'm probably the last generation of architects who actually drew, from the beginning sketch to the documents to go out the door for the contractor. And I think that we still draw it as the act of sketching prior to going to the computer. But I find going to the computer often very limiting, because a lot of the programs make you want to know the dimensions of things, which is about the building of it and not about the creation of the space. And a lot of times we sketch, we lay another piece of tracing paper is an amazing thing. You sketch, you lay a piece of tracing paper over it, you sketch again, you lay another piece of tracing paper over it, you sketch again, you take that final sketch, you put it on your board, you put a big piece of paper over the top of it, and you get out the triangle, and then you start to draw more precisely. But I love it, truth with a 6B lead. Doesn't matter whether it's a 1/4 of an inch or a 1/2 an inch or whatever, when you're starting out. And so I think that's a liberating in a way. And that I'm talking about architecture. So.
This is Dick. Catherine and I are hearing you and seeing you, but you only hear us. So
hi.
We're sort of limited here. Sorry. This is fantastic, Ruth. Just so rich. It's also very biblical. Isaiah 43, verse 19, translated mostly with the word behold. Behold, I am doing a new thing, King James, and goes through. New International Version, however, says, see, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. Isaiah 43, 19.
That's good.
Ruth Gless.
Yeah. Well, I was with a nouveau painter, somebody who was just starting out painting, and I finally was explaining, take a look at that, see how that does this, see how this does this. And finally I said, it's about seeing. But it's seeing with the eyes, but it's understanding with the mind. And they're always saying in class, I was saying, squint, because when you squint, you see only the basic shapes and the basic values, and that's what you want to do. You just want to understand that because that's where the essence of the painting is.
We're about at time. Are there any last questions we can offer to Ruth before questions?
No, but I'd love to thank you so much. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Ruth.
Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you for Mike also.
Thanks, Mike.
I have a niece that's an architect and very artistic, and now I think I understand her better.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's great.
Ruth. That's really good.
Let me say, if the government was in on this, we'd be open to federal prosecution because New Jersey's on the line. My first cousin, once removed, Frederick Butler, is calling in from the Princeton area. Hi, Fred.
Yeah. So what did you say, Isaiah what?
Isaiah 43:19.
43:19. That's good.
And if anybody knows how to fix the video on Zoom, please let us know.
We need it. There he is. There's Fred.
There you are.
Yep, here I am.
Yes.
Did you select the appropriate camera? Is the red line going through the video thing at the bottom of left hand of your?
No, Ruth, we've tried everything. I think I have to shut it down and reset it. And it looks like I probably am missing a upgrade of sorts.
Do you have?
What I had to do.
Cousin Carol.
Do you have a camera that's?
Yes, here's the other New Jerseyan.
Good to see you all.
Good to see you.
Have a good
Can't
day,
see
all.
them.
Thank you for including me.
Bye, Sharon.
Thanks, Stacy.
See you next
Thank you. Thank you.
Nick, I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
I'll call you.
Ew.
Okay.